I know you write a lot about this in your book, but can you talk about some of the key skills that you think the CEO needs to actually be successful? I mean, there are a lot of CEOs
Yeah.
today, so.
I feel like there's almost two separable things. There's the skills that are needed to be successful, and then there's the things you should focus on. And I think those may be separable, but a lot of people sort of conflate them. I think ultimately the things that you need to focus on are the things that the CEO uniquely has to do. And obviously it changes with the scale of a company, right? If you're two people, you just need to build a product and sell it, and that's it. And there's nothing else you should really be doing in some sense. If you're, a dozen people or a few dozen people, then a lot of the emphasis kind of shifts in terms of, number one, making sure that the company's properly capitalized, it has the money to do the things it needs to do. Number two, it's pointed in the right direction. Number three, it can attract, train, and retain great talent and allocate them against those resources or those things that you want to accomplish or those goals. And then lastly, I think one thing that's under talked about is sort of the chief psychologist role that a lot of CEOs end up playing, where a lot of members of your team will at different times be unhappy about certain things or want to talk through certain things, either from a personal, emotional, or sort of work perspective. And so you have to do a lot more of that than I think a lot of founders realize. And that kind of shifts with time, because eventually you build out an executive team and they start taking on more and more of that burden or that sort of role or task. If you think about it, if you're running a 100-person company and each person has a bad day 3 times a year, every day somebody's having a terrible day. And so that means that you end up in a lot of those sort of situations. So I think from a what you should be doing perspective, those were the main things. I guess the other one is, obviously representing the company externally. It could be for sales, partnerships, press, whatever. And so I think that's sort of the role side. I think the most under-talked skill sets in Silicon Valley, at least, because often when people talk about founders now, they talk about how technical the founder has to be and how smart they have to be as an engineer. And I think in reality, there's been sort of an underappreciation more recently of sort of the commercial side. And the fact that, if you're running a business, you should actually start to understand business. And you should, really do a crash course in that. And then I think the other big thing is sales. If you think about it, as a founder, you're constantly selling. You're selling employees to join you. You're selling venture capitalists to give you money. You're selling your customers to use you. So I think, when all is said and done, probably the biggest thing a CEO does is sell. But nobody ever talks about that as really the primary skill set that you're going to need.